صلاة وسلاما دائمين متلازمين إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks is due to Allah, peace and salutations on our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and friends and companions and all those that love and revere him until the end of time. We thank Allah Azza wa Jal for the multitude of favors that Allah Ta'ala bestows upon us on a regular basis. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings and Allah Ta'ala guide and protect us and keep us on the straight path. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. We find ourselves in very challenging times. It's almost end of the year, the festive season, life is there, and the parties have started. May Allah protect us. It's narrated by Nafi', who was the servant of Abdullah ibn Umar, radiyallahu anhuma. He says one day they went out to the outskirts of Medina and they put down the dastakhana, the cloth, and they sat on the ground and they ate. And whilst they were eating, a shepherd passed by and he greeted them, Assalamu alaikum. And Abdullah ibn Umar invited him to join them. Now, understand the scenario that the shepherd would, that time they consider as the low class. And he invited him, the shepherd, to join them in eating. And what was the response of the shepherd? He says, Inni sa'im. I'm fasting. And Abdullah ibn Umar says, أتسوم في مثل هذا اليوم الحار الشديد سمومه? Do you fast? It's not the month of Ramadan. Are you fasting on such a hot day? And he says, yes. Why? Because it is a time, ideal opportunity for him to come closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And immediately Abdullah ibn Umar said, you know what, I'm going to test this guy. And he says to him, you know what, sell me one of that sheep that you are rearing, grazing. Sell me one of those sheep. I will slaughter the sheep, I will pay you for that, and I will give you some meat you can later on break your fast with. And the shepherd says to him, this is not my sheep. I don't have authority to sell the sheep. The sheep belongs to the owner, his boss. And, you know, Abdullah ibn Umar was so astonished, amazed at this guy, this shepherd, mentioning this to him. And as the shepherd turned around and walked away, he says to the shepherd, you know what? No one will know. If you sell the sheep to me, you can tell your boss, tell the owner of the sheep, tell the person that has hired you that a hoof ate the sheep. Khalas. It's normal. The hoof ate the sheep. And you can enjoy some meat later on when you break your fast, and that will be between us. Khalas. What can the owner do? He can't kill you. He just punish you, and that's, after a while, it's finished. And he turns around and he says, فَأَيْنَ اللَّهِ. It's between us, yes? Who is Allah? Who is Allah? Allah has not come into the scenario that you are speaking about. Is Allah not conscious of what we are doing? Should we not be mindful of Allah Azza wa Jal? So we find ourselves in a period where our iman are challenged to the core. That we have to sell our deen to belong to a certain clique, and a certain group, and to be a friend of a certain friend, that we prepare to set aside Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam for a moment of enjoyment in the displeasure of Allah. We find ourselves in a period where ghish, where cheating, bribery is common in our lives. We become unmindful of the awareness of Allah, and that Allah yuraqibuna, that Allah Ta'ala is watching over us. We live in a period where we think that we're going to live forever. And accountability is not now. When it comes, we'll sort it out that time. When we look at this ra'i, the shepherd, that is considered as a low class at that time, yet in that environment that he lived, he was conscious of Allah. He was aware of Allah Azza wa Jal. And immediately came to him, Alam ya'lam bi anna Allah yara? Don't we know that Allah sees us? Ayahsabu an lam yarahu ahad? Do we ever think that no one sees us? وَأَسِرُّوا قَوْلَكُمْ أَوْ اجْهَرُوا بِهِ إِنَّهُ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. Indeed, Allah Ta'ala is aware of everything that we do. And Allah is alimun bidhati sudur, knows those things that we are doing in secret and in public. And Allah knows what is in our heart. Even while we are thinking about something and we speak to ourselves and wiswas, Allah knows. May Allah forgive us our shortcomings. Allah hears us. Allah sees us. This awareness of Allah is one of the highest level of deen. When the angel came into the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him three questions: Mal Islam, Mal Iman, and Mal Ihsan. Three levels. And what was the response? أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. The highest level of deen is when you worship Allah and you are conscious of the fact that even though I'm unable to see Allah, that Allah Ta'ala sees me and Allah is aware of my actions. And that is the highest level. So as we are indulging in those things which are not permissible in Islam, during these festive season, in order for, we are more concerned, what is if I don't join them in the year-end party, then it will jeopardize my possibility of increase or increase at the job managerial position and so forth and so forth. We're more worried about what the other person is going to say. Are we worried about what Allah is going to say? And how Allah is going to keep us accountable. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Don't we know that Allah Ta'ala knows everything that happens in the heavens and in the earth? If three people are having a secret conversation, Allah is the fourth one. If 4 and 5 is having a secret conversation, Allah is witness to that. If 100 people are having a secret conversation, Allah is the 101st one. There's nothing that can hide or conceal. Imagine we are in a room like this, and there's a camera. Yuraqibuna, and the camera is watching everything that we do. The camera, the person behind it is overseeing, is watching every act and every. Are we not going to be conscious about how we behave ourselves? Now imagine Allah Ta'ala is watching over us consistently, without failure. And we're not shy to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet, Allah is Ghafoor Rahim. That's our Creator. Yet, Allah Ta'ala is oft forgiving, most merciful. Yet, whilst we still have the soul in our body, and qabla yughargir, and while the soul has not reached our throat, the door of mercy and forgiveness is open. That is our Rabb. That is our Creator. We find from this lesson that we learn is when Abdullah ibn Umar invited the shepherd to join them in a meal. He was not looking at class. He was looking at the humanity, the human being that he wants to invite to join them in a piece of meal. We as human beings have divided ourselves in class and race. And that is not what Islam professes. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ reminds us, Ibghuni fi du'afaikum. Look for me amongst the wicked. Amongst the weak, sorry. Look for me amongst the weak ones, the poor. And you will find me there. And the Prophet also reminds us, if we give of what we have, our rizq lies in what we give to others. And if we stop giving to others, Allah stops sending His rizq to us. And that's the lesson that Abdullah ibn Umar teaches us in this qissa, in this very short story. So many things that we can learn from this. That at the end of the day, when we look at the Salaf al-Salih, a alim, be conscious of Allah in terms of consciousness. An alim had 4 students. And he says to them, I'm going to give each one of you a chicken and a knife. And I want to go out there and find a place in a room where no one sees you. And you slaughter the chicken. And there's a mukafa, there's a great reward for the one that comes back and slaughters the chicken without anyone seeing him. So they left 4 of them, each one with a chicken and a knife. Because there's a reward for it. 3 of them returned immediately after that. Their chicken being slaughtered. And the ustad asked, no, where's the 4th one? He said, we don't know. Maybe he's looking still for a place where no one sees him to slaughter the chicken. So we wait until he comes back. So when the 4th one eventually came back, he came back with the chicken, the live chicken and the knife. And the teacher asked him, Ma baluk, what's wrong? Why didn't you slaughter your chicken? I said, go out there. You came back with the live chicken and the knife. And he says, you see, Ustad, you said that I have to go out there and slaughter the chicken where no one sees me. I've went from place to place, and there's not one single place where Allah is not watching over me. And you threw the chicken down and the knife down. Muraqabatullah, be conscious and aware of Allah Azza wa Jal. That Allah Ta'ala is consistently aware of our actions and our deeds. This Ra'i, he was so conscious of Allah that an extreme hot day, even though he was able to eat, it was not the month of Ramadan, he wanted to compete in doing good in the most challenging of times, in the most difficult of times. He fasted for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when he was invited, as we know, if someone invites you to a sunnah fast, you can break your fast. Yet he was consistent. He wanted to fast and he continued fasting for that particular day. Why? Because he wanted to compete in doing good in the most challenging times. And that is when our iman are tested to the limit. We find in this particular story as well, the amana. The amana, if we understand amana, and this lesson of the short story of Abdullah ibn Umar and this shepherd, we will find that every employer and every employee, when they understand the amana, the trust that goes with that, we will find a better society and a better work environment and space. We will find that Allah will bless our income, our sustenance, that we do not betray the amana that has been given to us. Up to an alim, when he issues a fatwa, there's an amana that comes with that. There's an amana of the father in the household and how he rears his children and what and how he oversees the rights of the wife and vice versa. If we carry out that amana that was given to us, as the shepherd has been so consistent with the amana that was given to him to look after the sheep, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. As we all have sheep, we all have responsibility, we all have an amana to fulfill. And we understand that ultimately Allah Ta'ala watches over us to see how do we fulfill that amana that was given to us. إذا ضيعت الأمانة فانتظر الساعة. Because if that amana, if we do not carry it out, then wait for the end of time. May Allah protect us. Respected brothers, and especially to our young ones, that we are faced with so many challenges. In the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminds us, "Man taraka shay'an lillah, awadahu Allah khayran minhu." We even leave something for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with something better. We even leave something for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with something better. Here we find the shepherd. He was offered money, and he was offered some piece of the sheep for him. Yet he refused. He was conscious of Allah Azza wa Jal. And what happened? When Abdullah ibn Umar returned back to Medina, he asked his son to marry this. When he returned back to Medina, he sent a messenger to the owner of the shepherd and the owner of the sheep. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Sorry to disturb the khutbah of Shaykh. Is it Volkswagen C8577252? Volkswagen C8577252. You are blocking the entrance, the driveway of one of the neighbors. Please, you could move the vehicle. So we find that this shepherd How Allah Ta'ala man taraka shay'an lillah, leave something off for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace it with better. When Abdullah ibn Umar returned back, he sent the messenger to the owner of the sheep and the owner of the shepherd, which was one person. And he bought the owner, he bought the sheep from the owner, all the sheep, and the shepherd as well. And the shepherd. And he set the shepherd free and he gave the sheep to the shepherd. Leave something for the sake of Allah and Allah will replace it with better. This is a barakah. This is a barakah. Let me tell you a story of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. When he was a Khalifa, as common of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, we all know him as a lion of Islam. Yet, in the evenings, he used to go down walking down in Medina, and he used to check whether the people are in a good space. Look at the well-being of his community. And as he was walking, he became tired. And he rested against one of the walls or one of the petitions of one of the places there in Medina. And as he was resting against the wall, he heard the mother telling the daughter inside the house. And that particular time, just Umar ibn Khattab released a decree that whoever mix milk with water will be punished. Whoever mix milk with water will be punished. And as he was resting against, not to listen in, but he was resting against this wall, and he heard the mother telling the daughter, "Umdhuqi al-labna bil-ma." Umdhuqi al-labna bil-ma. Mix the milk with water. And so, Umar, listen to this. And the daughter tells the mother, but Sayyidina Umar released a decree that no one should mix milk with water. And the mother says to her, is Umar here? Do you see Umar here? Umar will not know if you don't tell him. Isn't that common? Umar will not know if you don't tell him. He's not here. You will not find out. But look at the response of the daughter. And she says to her beloved mother, إذا كان عمر لا يرانا فإن رب عمر يرانا. If Umar is not able to see us, then remember the creator of Umar, the sustainer, the maker of Umar. He sees us. Allah Azza wa Jal sees us. I mean, our own children standing up, mashallah, tabarakallah, for that which is right, standing up for the haqq, standing up for the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Umar ibn Khattab went home and he sent his son Asim to propose for the hand in marriage to this particular daughter. They got married. But from that marriage came the grandson of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. And this is teaching us, if we are prepared to sacrifice the deen of Allah, then Allah Ta'ala will cause that barakah to come within our family. That barakah to send down amongst the descendants of us. We speak about leaving good legacy behind that will look after this deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. But we have to set the example. We have to lead by example. احفظ الله يحفظك. احفظ الله تجد تجاهك. And therefore the Prophet ﷺ reminds us, protect the commandments of Allah. Be conscious of Allah. You will find that Allah will protect you. وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And if we fear Allah, we are conscious of Allah, Allah will make a path open for us. Allah Ta'ala will ease and facilitate our matters for us. But we have to be conscious of Allah. We be aware of Allah. And therefore, when we ask from Allah, we require assistance. We request that assistance from Allah. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. As we so vividly mentions in every rak'ah. Oh Allah, you alone do we worship. And you alone we ask for assistance and for help. And Allah will only assist us and help us if we build that relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. If we protect the deen of Allah, we are firm with the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah will cause that barakah to disseminate in our families, in our communities, our homes, and this ummah. This ummah are divided because we're not prepared to stand up holistically for the truth and for the haqq of Allah Azza wa Jal. We stand up only when it matters, when we benefit from it. And if we do not benefit from it, we turn a blind eye to the truth. We turn a blind eye for the haqq. So, يحفظ الله يحفظك. If we want Allah to protect us, we want Allah Ta'ala to grant us sustenance, rizq, then we have to look after this deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. May Allah Ta'ala grant us of those that when we are in a very awkward situation, when our iman are challenged to the limit, that we remember Allah, that we are conscious of Allah, that we remember that Allah yuraqibuna, Allah is watching over us, and there will be a day of accountability. There will be a day that we will be standing in front of Allah. And sooner or later, brothers, we are going to leave this world. This world is not forever. This world is deceiving us. Sooner or later, we will have to face the cheating that we are perhaps busy with in this world. Let us put that aside for the sake of Allah, and let us live a life in full obedience of Allah Ta'ala, despite the limitations that we have, despite that we are finding ourselves in difficult circumstances. But if we persevere, if we put our faith in Allah, Allah Ta'ala will change our condition to a better one. Ameen. آمين يا رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
السلام.
Mohammad Colbie, responsible executive program Al-Azhar, faculty of Sharia and Qanun. A splendid reminder as we approach, as Shaykh has said, for those who can relate, we are approaching the festive season, subhanAllah, and it is more difficult to implement or attain a better spiritual level of closeness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Shaykh for that. May Allah ta'ala grant Shaykh barakah and grant the strength to continue to do that he's doing in his community. As Imam Muslim that Allah Akbar Shaykh, whenever a speaker comes, hits the nail on his head. Someone in the week asks someone that goes for Umrah 4 or 5 times a year. Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala has blessed many of us. People perform Umrah more than once a year. Previously, people used to go once a year, they could afford only once a year, but nowadays people go twice, thrice, 4 times a year. Many people have performed Hajj, even though Hajj is only found once in a lifetime. People have gone Hajj many times in life. Those who are fortunate, Allah Ta'ala bless them with more.
Amen.
Someone asked, and this is pertinent to the khutbah of today. It's someone that has gone For Umrah, it goes for Umrah for the last 5 years, 4 times a year. That's what 20 times in 5 years. Allah Akbar. They go for 5 times a year, and this person they said that they felt bad because they heard the hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and they feel that the previous Umrahs has not been accepted. The question is why? They say no, that they go to Turkey 4 5 times a year. And they come from Turkey, Shaykh. This is exactly what Shaykh is talking about. We have created inequality amongst ourselves. So this person goes to Umrah 5 times a year, goes to Turkey 5 6 times a year. On every trip to Turkey comes back with about 10 to 12 bags of clothing and stuff that they resell. Halal business, legitimate business. The only problem is this: the first ask that they have a contact in Johannesburg International Airport and Customs, and they pay a bribe, Sheikh. They pay a bribe in order to clear those goods. You hopefully get clear goods to be clear and non-goods, the green and the red channel. So this person walks through the green channel and gets pulled over because they have a contact at the customs department, and they pay a bribe to clear the 12 bags of clothing that they're going to sell. So the question then is, the person asks whether they feel guilty, are the umrahs accepted? Allah Ta'ala knows best. But the hadith says, the hadith of Nabi Muhammad says, Ar-Rashi wal-Murshati kilahuma fi Jahannam. Allah. Nabi Muhammad says that the one who gives the bribe and the one who takes the bribe, both of them are in the fire of Jahannam. Allah Ta'ala protect us. Allah Ta'ala will judge that person, we are not judged, but this is, the hadith is clear in Jamaatul Muslimin, and this is so pertinent to the khutbah of Shaykh, that many of us, we act, because that defeats the purpose for those who are legitimately going for on business and coming back. They now are in a position where they don't have this facility to, to buy and sell like others who are doing it irresponsibly or illegitimately. So these are one of the many stumbling blocks we find ourselves in Jamaatul Muslimin. We ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us. Many of us make mistakes in life, and we see the goodness later in life. Jamaatul Muslimin, as we become wiser, we ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive us for our past sins, for our transgressions, especially those who have passed on. Allah Ta'ala to do it in the good. Allah Ta'ala grant us the ability, just not any kind of knowledge, but Allah Ta'ala must grant us beneficial knowledge. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. شكرا لكم.